All right, welcome everybody to the Business of Enterprise IT podcast brought to you by InfoSystems. And today I have a very special guest, and we'll be talking about a lot of interesting storage topics. So if you have storage needs on your mind right now, then this is a perfect opportunity for you to get some information directly from someone who knows just a little bit about that topic. And so without further ado, I'll introduce my guest today, Eric Herzog, who is Chief Marketing Officer with IBM Storage. How are you today, Eric?
Great. Well, thank you very much, Josh, for having us join today. We really appreciate working with you and your team on what we're doing and how we can work together to solve the needs of our end user base.
Yeah, great. So just to give our audience a quick understanding of some logistics, we're going to record two episodes of our podcast here. And one, I would really like to begin the first episode and just kind of talk about some storage theory, or without getting too deep into product, talk more about storage concepts. And the reason why I want to begin there is this podcast is probably viewed more by non-IT executives than it is by IT directors or CIOs or other IT executives. And so just to make sure that our audience really understands where we're coming from when we start talking about products and solutions and things like that, I always want to make sure we do a good job of explaining some of the theory behind what we're talking about. So episode one that we record together, we'll just talk about some high-level storage concepts. And then in episode two, which I'm really excited about, we'll talk about some very recent announcements from IBM and some of the cool stuff going on right now. So to get started with this episode, when you and I talked a few weeks ago, we were kind of got onto the subject of the types of storage. And you were kind of breaking it down into three types of storage. You've got block, object, and file storage. So can you explain kind of for the non-IT business executive, what types of data are we talking about, and what are the differences between those storage mechanisms?
Sure. So again, there's three major types of storage: block, file, and object. The bulk of the data that any company would use, such as databases, MRP systems, ERP systems, customer contact databases, etc., are based on block. Okay. Then the second most common type of data set is file. And these are files: Word files, MPEG files, JPEG files. So those are files. And of course, files actually do sit on blocks, but you can actually have what's known as a file system that can store it. And so you do it that way as well. And then last is objects. So what object does is take a whole sets of files and aggregate them with a pointer. It allows you to get huge data sets. So for example, two of IBM's customers with object storage have over an exabyte of storage in production. Now, it's heavily used in things like genomic research, oil and gas, media and entertainment. It's also used for large archive systems. For example, if you were a cable broadcaster, or if you were someone like a Netflix and you've got tons and tons and tons of video assets, which would be hundreds and hundreds of petabytes, if not exabytes, then storing it as an object store would allow you a very cost-effective way to store these incredible gobs of data. So you've got, again, block, file, and object, with block being the most common today. File is the second most, and then object is the third most. And it's all really a function, when you talk to your IT guy, if you're the business owner, it's all about your applications, workloads, and use cases. And what are your performance expectations and your availability expectations, because those applications, those use cases, those workloads, that's what drives your business today. It's a data-driven multi-cloud world today, and it doesn't matter whether you're a global Fortune 500, a mid-sized company, or even Herzog's Bar and Grill. Everybody uses storage nonstop, and everyone's business today is 7 by 24 by 365, driven by your compute infrastructure, which storage is that critical foundation.
Yeah, and so is there a big difference in the way those different types of storage are set up and managed? And can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So from a base setup, they're very similar. They all sit on what's known as a storage array, or you could use software and, if you will, create a storage array for block, for file, or for object. From a management perspective, your IT people would be managing them in a very similar way. There are nuances, but again, you've got a set of storage assets, physical assets, of which the blocks, the files, and the objects sit, and then those assets need to be highly performant, depending on your workload, of course. Mm-hmm. They need to be always available. So it's very important that you have availability and resilience as a critical characteristic, because when you're using that data, you always want to make sure, whether it be your customer contact database, whether it be the videos you may use in a sales process, whether that be your financial database, all of that information needs to be always available 365, 24/7. I mean, that's where the world is, whether you're a big company, medium, or small. So the management schema is very similar. There's a number of things that the teams will need to do to have things like, for example, disaster protection, right? Earthquakes, fires, floods, all those things hit a data center. And when they do, as strong as anyone's storage is, it will go away when the flood comes in. It will be destroyed if there's an earthquake. So you want to make sure that regardless of the types, you've got things like data availability on site, data resiliency on site, and then some sort of disaster plans that if you really do have an unfortunate incident. By the way, the most common form of data loss is still fire, where the array is actually burned, same with the computers. So you just want to make sure you've got a disaster recovery site somewhere so you could get your system up and going. And obviously, if you're a really small shop, the DR is more about being able to get your business back up and running. If you're a large shop or a medium shop, it's about keeping going. In other words, you'd go to a DR site, it'll do what's known as a failover, and then the servers would pick up the storage and the data from the failover site. So, depending on what you're doing and how big your business is, but if you don't have that disaster protection in, that's a big mistake, because then you could lose all of your data, and obviously that could wipe out your business.
Yeah, and I wanted to get into this whole, what should really be top of mind for enterprise and mid-sized business executives today, and the disaster recovery is absolutely, we've talked about it previously on our podcast, and so you've already kind of dove into that topic with, getting into disaster recovery and the importance and some of the differences between just being able to get back up and running or to never go down if it's that important or crucial. But
right.
Obviously that's one of the most highly top of mind topics in all of IT today is the availability, high availability and disaster recovery. What should these mid-sized business leaders and enterprise business leaders, how should they be engaging their IT department to make sure that these things are addressed?
So they need to make sure that their IT team has a strategy on what I'll call on-site availability first. Okay, storage products, server products, networking products, everything that they use, even the laptops or the pads that they use for their individual employees, those things fail no matter what you do. So when you have a failure in the storage world, there's a thing known as data availability, and data availability can be built into the system so that if a flash module fails or a power supply or fan fails, just like they might fail on your laptop or fail on your iPad or any other pad device, that you've got a situation where the storage keeps running. And so that's something you want to built in. So that's the data availability on site. You want to make sure that your data is always backed up. So let's take an easy example. You have a PowerPoint, you accidentally throw that thing away. If the data has been backed up on a regular basis on site, then guess what? You could go and grab that PowerPoint, or your IT guy can grab your PowerPoint, so you can stay productive and not lose data, whether that be an Excel with all your financial information, whether that be a PowerPoint for an important customer or partner meeting. So that's sort of the on-site. And then what you need is disaster recovery. So you've got primary storage and what's the availability and resiliency of that primary storage day to day. Local backup, so you can have data quickly and easily if something fails locally. And then a disaster recovery strategy. That, again, is if the building burns down or a flood hits or an earthquake, that you're able to keep your business up and running by having a remote site where you're able to have all your data, have duplicates of your server infrastructure or some semblance of it. Now, that doesn't always mean, depending on the type of company you are. So, for example, if you're a global enterprise in a major bank, for example, even a small bank, you may want to make sure that your downtime is pretty short, like 10 to 20 minutes. If you're, a mid-sized company in the manufacturing space, or in hospitality, hey, it may be okay to be down for an hour or so, right? So you have to sort of gauge that from a business perspective and understand, A, what I need for on-site data availability and resiliency, so I'm up and going in a normal environment. B, what do I need from a backup perspective? So if something happens, for example, like throwing away an important Excel file of your assets or something, you can get it back quickly. And then the third thing is if there really happens to be a true disaster to your building or where your IT infrastructure is housed, that you can get yourself up and going. So you factor those three things in. Mm-hmm. You can figure out even what does it take you to do by data set. So, for example, certain data may be more important than other data. So, for example, if there was a hurricane and your building got knocked down, you may decide that certain data is critical to be up and running within 30 minutes, and other data could take a day or two. And you can sit with your IT manager and say, and your CFO or your sales VP or your various business operations heads, and figure out what data has to be available very, very quickly, and what data, if we're missing it for half a day or a day, it's not a big deal. For example, let's take an asset database. If you've got an asset database of all your chairs and all your computers and all your whiteboards, yes, you have to keep that, right? And you need to have that because it's assets of your company. But if that database was down for a day, so what? However, your financial database, your accounts receivable, your accounts payable, your inventory management, your shipping and receiving, that probably can't be down that long because you can't run your business without those things. So you can choose that, and then you can figure out what do I need from each perspective, figure out what the cost will be, and make sure that data is always available, always protected, and always safe in case of a severe disaster.
I love it because what you're doing is reinforcing one of the ongoing themes that we constantly talk about here on our InfoSystems podcast, which is the importance of business leadership being engaged with the IT department. And we see on a regular basis that IT sort of operates independently, and they may be just reacting to certain things that are conditions that are happening within their business. But we often see that the IT department and executive leadership are not usually engaged at the table together to talk through these issues. So, I mean, the things you're hitting on there, talking about the importance of types of data, what's the most crucial to have backup quickly, what's not as crucial. I mean, that's just one of those areas where executive leadership has to be involved. The IT department is not going to know the answer to all of those things themselves.
Well, I think the real engagement here needs to be, everyone needs to realize that every company, from the biggest on this planet to the smallest on the planet, is digital. Who writes a proposal to a customer these days? You type it on a computer. You don't even use a typewriter anymore. Okay, so that is digital. Okay, your email, that's digital. If you have a website, that's all digital. So the world has gone digital. So not making sure that your compute, network, and storage infrastructure has the availability, has the local protection, and has the remote protection is asking for you to have a go out of business strategy, because it's that important. And IT can be a powerful tool. People who can mine their data, so if you've got a petabyte of customer information, the person who can mine that fastest and more efficiently and in the best fashion is the one who can make the more money, right? Your best sort of customers, for example, are your existing customers. So if you bring out a new product, a new chair, a new table, something in the compute world, whatever that may be, you want to engage with your existing clients. And if you don't have the right kind of database and can't explore that database and see what you're doing, then you may miss an opportunity, right, to upgrade your existing customer to something new or sell them something new. Maybe they've already got a table. Great. What about that new set of incredible chairs? Well, if you don't know who's got your tables, how can you sell them chairs?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff that even in a business that's got nothing to do with computers or IT actually is computerized in IT. And all of us deal with retail, not just the Amazon's world, but if you go to any retailer for anything, from your grocery store to your furniture store to a Nordstrom's, it's all digital, right? When they scan those new shoes, it automatically goes into their database. They know what kind of shoes you bought. They know all kinds of information. They themselves replenish that. So whether you're a Nordstrom or a small retailer, right? If you've got 2 shoe stores, it's all automated. Everything's automated. There is no such thing as a cash register. Cash registers are computers. So your whole world is digital, and the business owners just need to recognize that and engage with their IT people, because it protects your business, and IT can be a powerful business tool to optimize your revenue and your profit objectives without you even realizing it. I would argue data is your most valuable asset these days, and your second most valuable asset is the people who use that data. Yeah. And those are your 2 most valuable assets, and obviously that helps you get your customers.
Sure. I love the wisdom you're bringing out here, from a business leader perspective, and continuing down that path, talking about some of the tools that business leaders can use. One of the things I've been hearing a lot from IBM about lately, or for a while now, honestly, but it continues to build and build and build, is AI. And so, we all know that companies have been doing a pretty good job of storing data for a long time now. And you talk about these companies who have exabytes, or, a lot of companies are dealing with multiple terabytes of data. So the question now is, how will they transition into the era of AI if you've got all of that data that you've been storing for years and years? What's next for them?
Well, I think it's very critical that they understand that they leverage the data they've got. You're generating new data all the time. So let's say you are a sandwich shop and you've got 5 sandwich shops. Every time you register anything into that cash register, you're figuring out, how much turkey do I need? How much pastrami do I need? White bread, wheat bread, sourdough bread. All of that factors in. It allows you to create your order process better, allows you to know what promotions. So if you're going to advertise in the local newspaper and the newspaper's local website, do you want a special on turkey sandwiches, yes or no? Is that going to benefit you? Are you going to make more money off the turkey? Are you going to make more money off salami? Or what about tuna fish? All of those things can be had by being understanding and leveraging the data that you create. It sits on your storage foundation. Then you get the right data management tools to be able to constantly mine that data, leverage that data to help you sell more, to be more efficient in how you run your business, to provide better security for your various assets, particularly your digital assets. All of that can be done by just understanding how to use your data more effectively, and also making sure the data is always there.
Yeah, and it's pretty much always the case that when new technology platforms are released, at first they're typically adopted by the most sophisticated businesses out there, probably large, major global enterprise. But over a period of years, that technology trickles down into, mid-sized companies, and then eventually even, small, local, mom and pop businesses. And so, I think it's important to note that tools like AI are at that tipping point right now of becoming accessible to a wide range of companies all across, across industries, across size. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. AI is not just about big companies. AI is now commonplace and can be used everywhere. So it's easy to do. It allows you to look at your data. It allows you to evaluate that data. And if you want to know how to purchase that salami better, if you're the sandwich shop person, guess what? AI can help you do that. And you save money, and you can make more money. And that's what's important for any business owner, big, medium, or small.
Yeah. So before we wrap up this kind of conceptual talk about data storage and some of the tools and top-of-mind technologies that are out there right now, I just want to hear from your perspective from IBM. InfoSystems is an IBM Platinum partner, and we've maintained expert level competency in IBM storage for a long time now. And we work with some really large companies. We work with mid-sized companies. We work with small companies. It's kind of all across the board. But as that really high level IBM storage partner, from your perspective, what does that mean for businesses around our region? How do they benefit from that deep partnership between InfoSystems and IBM?
Well, it's very important. IBM relies on a network of business partners globally in all regions, right, including yours. And it's important from that perspective. We have partners like yourselves that are exceedingly well trained, understand the technology, most importantly, can help do solutions architecture, right? How do we solution? And you don't focus on storage. You focus on the workload. What's that use case? What application are they using? And then you guys, as one of our valued partners, can solution architect the right solution. You look at storage, or if you look at almost any IT infrastructure, there's usually a lot of different choices. So how do you make the right choices? In our product line, for example, the hot thing right now in the storage industry is known as an all-flash array. For any company, big, medium, or small, we can take their application performance to at least 10x, not 10%, 10x, and in some workloads as much as 500x better performance. Okay? So flash is critical, but at the same time, we have multiple different flash technologies because it's the right tool for the right job. No one would go cut down a tree with a hammer. Yeah. And no one is going to take a chainsaw to put in a nail. You have the right tool for the right job. And our all-flash arrays, which you can solution in, give the right solutions for big data analytic workloads. If they have a mainframe computer, there's a certain all-flash storage you hook up to that. If they're a large enterprise, they probably could use stuff across the portfolio, and you can help them solution how to not overbuy. So, for example, if you were working with a bank, on their mainframe, which they probably have, almost every bank in the world does, you want to use our DS family. But the bank wants to do big data analytics, for example, credit card fraud. Guess what? That would be our IBM Elastic Storage Server all flash. Let's say they're creating a cloud infrastructure, right, so that the end users can come in and do some of the banking, over the cloud. Well, guess what? That would be our flash system A9000 product. And in every branch, just in case the core goes down, every branch has a server and its own little set of storage. So if the core goes down, right, of course, in today's world, you have, of course, a core data center that can talks to all your nodes. This is true in retail and banking and all kinds of things with remote offices. Well, guess what? In the banking industry, there's always a server and always storage there, because if the core goes down, guess what? You need to be able to transact that deposit or whatever, and then you sync up with the core when the core data center comes back online. So that's just one example of how you guys, with all of your solution architecture, pick the right tool for the right job at the right price point. And that allows them to all take advantage, whether you have a big account, a medium account, or small accounts that work with you, that allows any of those accounts to benefit from the capability.
Yeah, that's great. And you're kind of setting the stage there for our next episode when you're getting into the all flash stuff, and I'm excited to talk about some of these brand new announcements from IBM. And any last comments before we wrap up this conversation and get into that recent announcement and some of these products that IBM is bringing to the market?
Sure. I think the critical thing business owners need to realize is that IT is not your enemy. IT is your tool. Just the way you would use a chair, just the way you would use a car, just the way you use your cell phone. And the better your IT solutions are, the more money you can make and the more profitable you'll be. Because IT can be an incredibly powerful tool, and not just for the biggest companies in the world. Some of the most successful small companies in the world, those that make the Inc. 500 list, for example, those are all small companies, right? The Inc. magazine is focused on small to medium companies. The ones that make that Inc. 500 list that are growing like crazy, they usually do it because they've got an IT advantage, whether they're in the sandwich business, whether they're in a retail environment, whether they're some small manufacturer making custom products of some sort, whether they're in the contracting industry. The way that they get where they are is not only having great solutions on their own, but using IT as a powerful weapon for them to compete against the other contractor or the other food company or the other sandwich shop or whatever. And that's a critical differentiator that IT can be. And that's a critical thing that the listeners need to recognize is IT is not an expense at all. IT is actually an asset, and an asset that can be used incredibly competitively, both against other companies that you have to compete with in the market, but also as a way just to compete against yourself. How could you have better customer service? How can you make your customers happy? How can you cut costs yet still deliver top grade customer service, because sometimes cutting costs means you, if you will, go on the cheap, and that there's ways to do it without going on the cheap and still saving you money, making you more profitable, but delivering even better support and service to your end users and your clients.
Yeah. There you have it, folks. This guy knows what he's talking about. If you don't believe me, I'll provide some links in our blog recap of this podcast episode to some of the other material that you've published on through the IBM YouTube channel and other places. Fantastic content coming out all the time. And you're a maniac on social media. I see posts from you a lot. With great content, not only from you and IBM, but from partners and third parties and all types of stuff. So you do a great job in what you do, and I really appreciate you coming on the InfoSystems podcast to talk about storage today. And so we'll wrap up this episode here, and then next we'll jump into an episode that will be released separately, where we talk about some recent IBM storage announcements about some flash storage. So did I close things out okay there?
Yeah, great. Well, thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Eric.